When as householders we try to practice Dhamma to a fairly serious degree, one of the most obvious issues that we come up against is the question of how do we manage to maintain a degree of meditation, maintain mindfulness, maintain our practice throughout our daily lives, because obviously we're not going to have as much time as a monk will have for just sitting in meditation or just doing walking meditation and nothing else. And even for monks it might turn out to be an issue, because it turns out that as a monk you sometimes have to do things other than just sit in meditation as well. And it's an important question to solve, not only because, let's say, as a layperson, we don't have the luxury of having a lot of time to spend only in meditation, but also because it's about understanding what meditation is. If we think that we absolutely have to be in a quiet, secluded place, just sitting down and doing nothing else in order to meditate, in order to practice sati or mindfulness, well then how can we ever expect to become independent of everything around us, to become independent of all things that can change? Because we're totally dependent on being in a quiet place with nothing bothering us in order to be able to be peaceful, in order to be able to meditate. That doesn't work. If our practice is aiming to become free from anger, for example, but we're only able to do our practice in a situation where nobody will make us angry, well, that doesn't work, doesn't make sense. So our way of meditating, our way of applying the Buddha's teaching cannot be something that depends on doing a particular set of actions or being in a particular type of place. It has to be something that we can carry into any activity. So suppose we have no choice but to spend a good amount of our time working, doing different tasks, doing particular jobs. How do we nonetheless use that time for Dhamma, use that time for practicing the Buddha's teaching? So I will talk about 4 main points. Firstly, to know the purpose why you're doing things, change your attitude in how you work. Secondly, be clever in finding moments throughout the day to bring the attention inside. Thirdly, protect the mind by keeping the mind in Dhamma. And fourthly, don't neglect spending time in solitary meditation, pure meditation. So on the first point, knowing the purpose for doing things. So this is really the first thing that we need to change in order to make our job into our meditation, whatever it might be. And it's quite simple. It's not a big deal. It's really just a change in attitude towards what we're doing. What's my aim? What's my purpose in going to do this task? Let's say I'm going to wash the dishes. If my aim is clear, my aim will give direction to any action that I can do. So now, instead of going to wash the dishes with the purpose of just getting it done, I want to finish washing the dishes, I will use this time of washing the dishes to practice to not do any action that is guided by greed, dislike, irritation, or by carelessness. I will use this time to remove any of these things that might want to arise. Even if it's the littlest action, I want to do it without anything bad inside. Where in the example of washing the dishes, it can be placing a dish on the counter. It can be done carelessly, not paying attention, not knowing what you're about to do, or kind of impatiently just wanting to sort of get rid of it and go on to the next one. Or it can be done without these wrong intentions, without these kilesa driving. So just to be clear, the aim is not to do the dishes perfectly and have all the dishes like the most clean dishes in the universe. The aim is not about the material result, even though you will end up with a good material result if you're taking care of what's inside you when you do things. But that's a byproduct. You don't care. It's not the reason why I'm doing this. And it's not the aim either to be like fully concentrated on the object outside, to be like watching the colors of the dishes or paying attention to how this one has a little crack or all attention on the sensation of the sponge in the hand. This is useless. It's not either to take 1,000,000 years to wash the dishes, and to every dish that you place on the counter takes you 10 long seconds to place there. You don't need to. You just need to be paying attention to what's in your mind as you are doing this. And the aim is to have a pure mind, a clear mind, as I do this action. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. So this is the thing that comes first in having one's job as one meditation and one's meditation as one's job. Establishing the right purpose, the right aim for what you're doing. No matter what I'm doing it in order to practice guarding my senses, guarding my mind, not allowing my mind to bring me to act with greed, with carelessness, with any form of anger or irritation, or with any kilesa. So that's the first point. Second point, how to be clever in finding moments throughout the day to just concentrate on watching the mind. Our lives as human beings are very brief, at the very most about 100 years, and every day goes past so quickly. As a practitioner of Dhamma, every moment is therefore a very precious resource, not something to be thrown away. So if we work as a householder, we will try to find all the moments in our day that we can to just focus on our practice. So the first point is that everything we will do, we will make it to be for our practice, for the sake of our practice. And if it cannot be for the sake of our practice, then there is something in our physical circumstances we need to change. But also, we will try to find as much time as possible throughout the day in which we can just pay attention to our mind, pay attention to practicing Dhamma and nothing else. And there are surprisingly many moments like this. Whatever kind of job we might be doing, there are moments when we have to walk from one place to another. So we're walking, let's say, from here to the bathroom. So we decide one time that we're going to the bathroom, but then we have all this time that we're going from our desk to the bathroom that normally we're just, oh yes, I'm going to the bathroom, going to the bathroom, going to the bathroom, going to the bathroom. But there's no need. We can use that time now to practice walking meditation. So to just look into our mind, or to be mindful of the intention of each step as we are walking from here to the bathroom. Or all these little moments when we have to wait for something, let's say even just for a page on the internet to load, if our job involves working on the internet, for example. So then instead of finding something else to do while the page is loading, why don't we take that time to look into the mind, practice anapana, meditate on just breathing, the action of breathing. And then we can try to maintain this sati in regard to breathing, or in regard to walking, or in regard to whatever action we're doing throughout whatever job we might be doing as well. So that's a way that we can take our practice a bit deeper throughout the day. The third point is to find ways to keep the mind in Dhamma. So what I mean by this is to train ourselves, to train our mind to have the teachings, the Dhamma, as its reference point, as its kind of resting place, as its playground, to the extent that we will allow it to play. So whatever subject we repeatedly and habitually pay attention to, our mind will continually then go back to this subject. It's its nature. It's a creature of habit. So if we train it in subjects of society and the world and politics and whatever might be going on, or we train it in subjects of movies or gossip or whatever other subjects, then these are the subjects that will be the subject of thought for the mind. But if we continually bring the teachings, bring the Dhamma as a subject of our attention, well, then we can train our mind in this instead, and this will be our reference point. We will learn to see everything through the eyes of Dhamma instead of through the normal, worldly, emotionally driven, normal eyes. So we can do this by reading or listening to suttas or to teachings that we have remembered or recorded, And then also by trying to apply them, trying to see how they apply throughout the rest of our day. And also by trying to avoid unnecessary conversation. This is an important one. When we are householders and we have a job and we have to live in the world, we can't avoid some conversation that is not about Dhamma, because it just doesn't work. But we can try to avoid all useless conversation, all things that are not essential. Try to avoid getting into conversations about things that will bring our mind into sensuality or into fear or whatever subjects that bring us in the opposite direction of our aim. So doing this is extremely helpful in many ways. Firstly, it helps to protect our mind, because always the mind's nature is to go downhill. It wants to follow the easiest path. So it will want to go in the subjects and go in the job and go in the conversations, and it will want to fall into its old habits. So we have to use every way possible to protect it, to stop it from doing that, to give it other food, to train it to go in a different direction to the direction it's used to going in. And also then it will help us to develop our understanding, and it will give us inspiration and energy in our practice. When we listen to stories, for example, of the people who practiced in the time of the Buddha, it gives us role models to aspire to. And overall, the main thing, as I said before, is that we're training ourselves to see the world, to see everything that we do and everything that we experience through the eyes of Dhamma, through the eyes of the teachings. The fourth point, then, finally, is don't neglect taking time for meditation only. This means solitary meditation when the only job is the only job is watching the mind, observing inside to understand its nature. And even if we're able to have quite a good level of mindfulness throughout our daily life and our work, it's still an essential thing to take time for meditation, both because it sets us up in the mindset that we want to carry with us throughout our whole day, and also because it allows us to deepen our practice and progress further than if we're kind of just doing half meditation, half working, using our job as a meditation, but still not being able to dedicate all our attention fully to this. And also, finally, because it's important to not underestimate the power of the kilesa, how strong they are, since millions and billions of lives we have been the job. We are this job that we're doing, or we are this conversation we're having, or this mind is so trained to just lose all sense of perspective, get lost in whatever he's doing or whatever he's thinking. And so it's not going to be easy it's not going to just happen in one day that we can train ourselves to suddenly be different. So taking time for meditation, to do walking meditation or to do sitting meditation, it also helps to put like a break, to say, okay, stop. And so then even like if worst to worst we fall in the subject and we become the job throughout the day, at least we have this break at the end of the day or in the beginning of the day or at some point when we come back to, okay, no, my job is this. It's not what I'm doing outside in the world. My real task, my real aim is here. Look inside. And it can be a very good practice to do as well. Instead of just taking one block of meditation in the evening, for example, it can be useful to take just 5 minutes, let's say, every hour to do a little walking meditation, just back and forth. It doesn't have to be long or difficult at all, but just to, again, bring back the reference point of what our job actually is, what our purpose actually is, and what we're doing. So when it comes to making our work into our meditation and our meditation to be our work, first we need to change our attitudes to the tasks that we do, change the purpose for which we do them, and make our purpose to be advancing in the teachings, advancing in the practice, instead of just getting the job done or trying to create a perfect result. Secondly, be clever and find ways to bring our attention inside throughout little moments in our day. Thirdly, protect the mind by keeping it in Dhamma. And fourthly, don't neglect taking time for meditation and solitude.